Stanley's Cup begins Saturday. We'll set the stage. We begin in the NBA, where it's win or go home. The last two playoff spots up for grabs.
Yeah, it's no series, no second chances. You just got 48 minutes to keep your season alive. And Hakeem, sometimes momentum and experience, it's not enough when it's all on the line. Well, how about the Warriors? They're looking to secure the 8th seed after Steph Curry's 35-point performance on Wednesday, taking on the Suns, who are seeking their 5th playoff appearance in the last 6 seasons. Mid-second quarter, we start you off a Warriors turnover. Jalen Green on the break throws down the one-handed slam. Prepare to hear his name quite a bit. He scored 14 in the first half. Late second quarter now, Curry coming up with the steal on the break. Fadeaway 3, vintage Curry. Warriors down 5 at the half. Curry with 7 of his final 17 in the first half. Late third now, Green pulls away from way downtown, sticks it. Suns up 10. Green with 27 through 3. Now early fourth, Devin Booker, Green, ball fake, 3, cash it. Suns, they go on to win 111-96 and clinch the 8th seed courtesy of Jalen Green. Green and the play-in, 36-point night, having himself an outing. Well, against the Trailblazers, he had 35 points. Against the Warriors, 36, but tempers did start to boil for the Warriors, whose season comes to an end. Draymond Green was ejected in the final minute, and as you saw, making the fans hear it on his way out. But nonetheless, the Suns, they're punching their ticket after missing the postseason. They're back. So the math is simple. Win, and you get in. The Magic looking to make the playoffs in 3 straight years for the first time since 2000 to 2012 seasons. Winner clinching the 8th seed in the East and playing the 1 seed Pistons in the first round. Mid-first, Paolo Banchero drives over the shoulder to Wendell Carter Jr. Drains the corner trade, part of a 13-0 Magic run. One of Banchero's 6 assists on the night. Now late first we go. Banchero. This time, instead of the helper, does it himself, takes it to the rack for the bucket and 1. Magic up 22 after 1. Now late second, tensions rising for the Hornets, down 26. Miles Bridges with the ball. Desmond Bane forcing the turnover. Bridges, though, called for a foul on Bane. Bridges put his fist across Bane's face to get up off the floor. He was assessed a dead ball technical foul. All right, let's get things in order, fellas. Minute later. In transition, Franz Wagner lobs it up to Jalen Suggs. He throws it down. Magic up 31 at the break. That's the largest halftime lead in a postseason game in franchise history for Orlando. Early third now. Pass to Banchero, into the paint for the one-handed jam. Banchero finished with 25 points as the Magic dominate this one 121-90, making the playoffs in 3 straight years for the first time since the 2007 through 2012 season. Well, here's what lies ahead now. The Magic will assume the 8th seed and will face the top-seeded Pistons in the first round. First round action getting set Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So the picture is complete in the chase for the Larry O'Brien, as we're back joined by CBS Sports NBA analyst John Gonzalez. And now that we know who's all in, John, I'm going to let you take the reins and take us through your playoff bracket prediction. And let's begin this conversation in the East. Who you got?
Yeah, play-in is over. The playoffs are upon us starting on Saturday. So I'll start with that 1-8 matchup, the Pistons and the Magic. 2 teams, Kiana, that are very, very similar. They both are defensive-minded. They both like to get their points in the paint. I just think that the Pistons, look, they're the 1 seed for a reason. They do all of those things better than the Magic, so I'll take the Pistons there. That 4-5 matchup, the Cavs and the Raptors, both of these teams need to get out of the first round. Cavs had a very disappointing postseason last year, and the Raptors are awfully expensive for a 5 seed, but I think the Cavs are a little bit better, so I'll go Cleveland. 3-6, this is the upset alert. I didn't have the courage to take the Knicks, but the Knicks are just break even against teams that are 500 or better this season. Guess what? The Hawks have a winning record, and so will everybody else that the Knicks could potentially face. But it would not surprise me if the Knicks lose this one, but I have them moving on. And then that 2-7 matchup, the Celtics and the 76ers. Get this. The Sixers have not beaten Boston in the postseason since the early 80s. Kiana, it's 2026. I'm going to go with the Celtics. Then we go into the second round there. We've got the Pistons And the Cavs, again, I just don't think that the Pistons get enough respect. They've been at the top of the Eastern Conference all season long. The Cavs had to shuffle the deck before the trade deadline. I just think the Pistons have that continuity. And then we get the second round matchup that everybody is looking for, the Celtics and the Knicks. The Celtics weren't supposed to be here. They're supposed to take a gap year. They've been the better team at both ends of the floor all season long. I think that Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns get hunted. Jason Tatum is back. Jaylen Brown is having a fantastic year, as is Derek White. This one's chalk for me because Boston's moving on.
I think Knicks fans are probably muting their TVs right now, probably covering their ears, because that's certainly not what they want to hear. But in your conference finals, as we just saw, you've got the top 2 seeds in the East that'll be duking it out in the Celtics, in the Pistons. Detroit has won each of their last 3 matchups after dropping that first meeting. That was back in November. But what stands out about this matchup this time around with a trip to the finals on the line?
This would be an absolutely fantastic Eastern Conference Finals, an old school throwback conference finals between Detroit and Boston. And look, the Pistons, again, top of the Eastern Conference all season long, a top 10 offense, which people don't really realize, and then the number 2 defense in the NBA behind Oklahoma City, only Oklahoma City. And then you also have Cade Cunningham, who had a top 5 MVP caliber season, Jalen Duren, who really took the leap. And then the Celtics, I mean, like, how much have we talked about the Celtics all season long, about how amazing and remarkable this season was when they go and get rid of a huge chunk of their core during the offseason, and Jason Tatum has an Achilles tear, and you think, well, they're dead in the water. They're going to have to wait until next season. Jaylen Brown, he has a top 5 MVP caliber season. Derek White's headed for all NBA. Joe Mazzulla just coaching up a bunch of guys who are deep on his bench, who you think, these guys, how are they even in the NBA? And then they're huge roster components. And then, of course, Jason Tatum comes back only after 10 months. So I think this would be a really good one. I think it would go deep into the series, but I'm going to go with Boston just from muscle memory here. They have more postseason experience, and I think that they're slightly more talented at both ends of the floor.
He just literally told us to make sure we're putting some respect on Detroit's name. Meanwhile, we're rolling with the Celtics coming out of the East. But I do want to head to the west side of the bracket. Run me through your picks in the Western Conference playoffs.
All right, back to that 1-8 seed. The Suns have advanced over the Golden State Warriors, and further trouble, they get swept or gentlemen swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder are just the deepest team in the NBA, and they're going to have way too much for Phoenix. In that 4-5 matchup, what could have been, right? I mean, you're not going to have Luka Doncic. He's hurt. You're not going to have Austin Reeves. He's hurt. That could have been a real series, and instead, the Rockets, Kevin Durant, we'll see. He's questionable for that game, but they just have too much. You've got Alperen Sengun and Amen Thompson, and the Lakers were thin anyway. The 3-6 matchup. This is the marquee matchup of the first round. The Wolves have to be so bummed out that the Nuggets won that last game of the regular season to claim the 3 seed, because otherwise they'd be facing the Lakers right now. Instead, they have the hardest path of any team in the NBA during the postseason. I think it ends in the first round. I'll take the Nuggets. And then that Spurs that's 2-7 matchup there with the Spurs and the Blazers. Blazers have had a great season. I didn't expect them to be in the postseason. It's just the Spurs are so good at both ends of the floor. And what do you do with Victor Wembanyama? Nobody has an answer for him in the NBA, and certainly not the Blazers. On to the second round there. We've got Oklahoma City and the Rockets. This is where I think it gets interesting. Oklahoma City, they're the defending champs for a reason. The Rockets had played them tough early in the season. I just think, again, Oklahoma City being that deep, the Rockets don't have as much offense as Oklahoma City has. So I think nice season for them, but they're going to have to add more pieces in the offseason.
All right, so where we have right now, you have the Nuggets moving on with that game, their series against the Spurs. But Denver, they did win the regular season series 3-1 against the Spurs. Denver won each of the final 3 matchups of that series. There's been a lot of talk about Victor Wembanyama, what he can look like in his first postseason, especially while healthy. You literally just said no one has an answer for Wemby, but what's the X factor for you in this series?
Yeah, nobody has an answer for Wemby, but guess what? On the other side, nobody has an answer for Joker either, right? I mean, you remember last year when they were when the Nuggets were playing Oklahoma City and they went to 7 games in the second round where they were throwing everything they could possibly throw at Joker. They had Chet Holmgren out there, Isaiah Hartenstein. At one point, Alex Caruso got some shifts. Sure, why not, right? That's the same thing that's going to happen with Victor Wembanyama, where there's no good answer, so you're just going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at him. Now, as you mentioned, the Nuggets beat the Spurs 3 times out of 4 in this regular season. So the Spurs, despite the fact that they've played Oklahoma City really tough and beat them 4 out of 5 times, they're not playing Oklahoma City theoretically in the second round. This is the huge clash. Whoever wins this goes off to the conference finals to ostensibly play Oklahoma City. Spurs, this is one of those years where, hey, they're way ahead of the curve. They haven't made the postseason since 2019. The next few seasons are going to be all about Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs, but I don't think this one is, because there's a little bit of a learning curve in the playoffs, right? So I'm going to go with the team that's done it before, that's won a championship, and that while Victor Wembanyama is next, I still believe the best player in the NBA, not going to be MVP, but the best player in the whole world is still Nikola Jokic. I think they move on.
Man, so we got to find answers for Wemby. We got to find answers for Victor Wembanyama. Nonetheless, you see Denver moving on in that matchup against the Spurs. Well, the Thunder, they have the shortest odds to win the West by a long shot. However, do we foresee maybe an upset here? Thunder dominated their regular season series against the Nuggets. So do you have Denver with the edge? How do you see this playing out in the West?
You're reading my mind. I do foresee an upset here. Look, it's going to be a phenomenal series. Oklahoma City is the defending champs for a reason. As I keep mentioning, they are so loaded. They're so deep. They've got the reigning MVP, probably going to be back-to-back MVP and SGA. Jalen Williams is back healthy. Chet Holmgren is going to be first team all defense. And you just go through their roster, and they're incredible. But don't forget, last year, when these two teams matched up, Denver took them to Game 7 in the second round. Well, guess what? That Denver team wasn't nearly as good or as deep as this Denver team. This Denver team is the best team that Joker has ever had around him. Jamal Murray, career year, made All-Star, is going to make All-NBA, the first time he's ever done that. And he kept that team afloat when they had a ton of injury issues. I mean, they were the 3 seed this year, Kiana, despite the fact that 4 of their 5 starters missed significant time. Joker, Cam Johnson, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, all missed huge chunks of time. Peyton Watson, too, after those guys went down. Now all of them, except for Peyton Watson, are healthy. So I just think if they can make it to the conference finals healthy, not only do they have a puncher's chance, I'll go with the best player in the world again, with the best team he's ever had around him. I think Denver's going to pull the upset.
Okay, so if my memory does serve me correctly, that means that we have the Celtics coming out of the East, the Nuggets coming out of the West, Denver back in the finals for the first time since their last title, which was back in 2023. The Celtics, like you mentioned, not many people predicted would make it back to this point so soon, just after reshuffling its roster and that brutal injury to Jason Tatum less than a calendar year ago. Both phenomenal stories to get to this point if, John, this does happen. So if it does, who's crowned NBA champs when it's all said and done?
Yeah, if it happens, I'm going to go with the Nuggets. I mean, look, the Celtics, again, I didn't anticipate that they would be here. I didn't think that they'd have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense, or that Jason Tatum would come back after 10 months, or that Jaylen Brown would look like a top 5 MVP candidate. I always believe in Derek White. That guy's just super, super underrated. But the Nuggets, there's just something where, like, their entire season, again, after all these injuries, I didn't anticipate that they would still get the 3 seed, right? And they just kept plugging along. And Jamal Murray is a huge reason why. He does not get enough credit. I have him in second team All-NBA. He's going to make one of the All-NBA teams, maybe third team. But either way, for him to have the kind of season that he had and really keep the Nuggets' heads above water as all these guys were coming back from injury. And now all of a sudden they're healthy at the right time. They're playing hot at the right time. They went into the postseason as one of the hottest teams in the NBA on a huge winning streak. And they have the #1 offense and the #1 player in the world. The Nuggets get their second championship with Nikola Jokic.
All right, you did say this is the best team Jokic has had around them. They have a little bit of experience. They have the momentum. They're healthy right now. Could things be boding well for Denver? Yet to be seen, but I've got my notes here, John, and we're going to circle back in a couple of months and see how it checks out. Thanks so much.
Keep the receipts.
I'm keeping the receipts. Thanks, John. Well, the Nuggets have been streaking. John talked about it, and they look to continue it throughout the playoffs. They enter the postseason with the 4th longest win streak in NBA history, with 12 straight wins ahead of their first-round matchup against the Wolves. Unfortunately for all the other teams who went streaking heading into the playoffs, well, none made it to the finals, let alone their conference finals. But John thinks they can buck that trend. We'll find out as they kick off their playoff campaign Saturday at 3:30 Eastern from Ball Arena in Denver. Coming up, they shoveled